post this up on the Paly PTSA website as soon as the recording processes. So welcome all. This is going to be a pretty informal, casual session. We'll really just, hopefully I'm not the one talking, although I might kick it off, and I'll help try and kind of steer the conversation a little bit towards covering some of the really, truly exemplary and the gems that are at Paly. If you could help us out, community, by maybe renaming yourselves in the Zoom screen and letting us know what grades your children are in, that would, I think, help as we open up participation. And with that, I thought I'd start with my own experience. I have 2 daughters. I have an incoming freshman, so I have an 8th grader at JLS, and I have a junior right now at Paly. And one of the things that has really made the last 3 years really special for my junior is a concentration that she started doing in sophomore year in childhood development. So right now she's in the 2nd class of early childhood development / childhood development. It's a program that Miss McDaniels runs, who is an absolutely phenomenal teacher, but she's constructed a program that's dual enrollment with Foothill College. So all of these classes are actually similar to APs in the sense of they are weighted classes. Or there's an option for that class to be a weighted class. There's a regular level as well as an honors level. But one of the things that's so incredibly special about it is that they actually go to Greendale, like, non-COVID times, twice a week and work in a real preschool class and get hands-on field experience. And it is always those days that my child has a huge smile on her face when she comes home, and it's kind of been the anchor for her over those last few years, and just having, or these last couple of years, I should say, and just having something that she really connected with at a very personal level. And reflecting back on Paly and kind of course selection and all of the different things she's tried, that has just been really formative for her. It's given her balance. It's given her joy. It's been something that she's truly pursued as an interest and a passion, and not just for the academics or the grades. So that was my experience. Happy to spend a couple minutes talking about ECD if somebody wants to ask questions or about that, or we can try and move on. I was, and you guys can just feel free to unmute yourselves and ask and talk and speak up. Okay. If there aren't any, questions or lingering interest in sorry, just to clarify for the people who just joined us, I was talking about childhood development and the early childhood development pathway that Ms. McDaniels teaches. And at Paly, it's kind of, you can do one course, or you can actually do all 3 courses and kind of pursue a real concentration in early childhood development. And I believe there's even a certification process at the end of it that you can get certified as something. You can get some sort of credential out of it in terms of pursuing a future career in teaching. So that's what I was talking about. Is somebody here that has a child in social justice? I thought that might be an interesting one to explore and mention and talk about and share. Anybody want to speak up and talk about social justice? Hello?
If no one else does, I could. I have a sophomore in social justice. I don't know the program pre-COVID, obviously, because that's the only way he knows it. I should say that in general, he's not a huge fan of school because he finds that he's asked to kind of do a lot of stuff that's not particularly meaningful and regurgitate things out the other end. And he just doesn't find that particularly engaging. But he is really enjoying the social justice class, especially I think social studies this semester, because I guess they have opportunities to explore issues of social justice. And his final project for English last semester, they got to write about an issue in social justice. There was some choice. He didn't particularly like the choices exactly as written, and so was able to go to his teacher and modify the assignment slightly to be able to write his final project on the connection between the way the federal government was handling, or Trump specifically was handling, the response to COVID and the rise in hate crimes against Asian Americans in this country. And it was a pretty compelling, interesting paper at the end of the day. I wouldn't say the feedback was excellent in terms of improving his writing skills, but he did get an opportunity to do work that was interesting for him. And so I think that's what I would say so far about social justice as a program, is it's been flexible enough to allow a kid who has genuine interests in the world and politics to explore those through regular classes, which has gotten him out of a long-standing place where he's kind of loved learning about politics and watching John Oliver and reading about what's going on in this country, all the while saying he hates social studies. And social justice program has gotten rid of that because it now seems relevant to him.
That's great. Mari, did you want to share anything? I see a comment that you have a 12th grader.
Oh, sure. Yeah, so my daughter is a 12th grader in the social justice program, and it has been a really good experience for her. I agree with everything that the previous speaker said, and I would just add that I think specifically for my daughter, the ability to have the same 2 teachers for 2 subjects across 3 years of high school has been really, really helpful for her. She actually, we came from private middle school, and I would actually say that she feels closer to those teachers than she did to any of the teachers at the private middle school, which I think is pretty compelling. And the other thing I would add is that the assessments are also very different in social justice, and it's created some balance so that she's experienced sort of the typical assessments with the grades and multiple choice, etc. And then also had this very different sort of assessments. If they don't have traditional finals, for example, it's typically a paper or project.
Great, thank you.
Hi.
Yeah,
Hi. I didn't rename myself, but I'm Mani, and I have a 11th grader. And if and I had when my son was in 10th, he was in the social justice program, but made an affirmative decision to move out and not continue with it. And maybe some reasons are personal to him. Although I agree with the previous 2 speakers about all the, the positives. I think it just didn't click for him because he felt like I can watch CNN and John Oliver and do my own reading, and I'm learning more than I was in the class. So if there are any folks here who are sort of making that decision from maybe didn't have such a positive experience, I'd be happy to chat. But I think it is also teacher dependent and the cohort dependent. Our group last year had 2 new the teachers themselves weren't new to teaching, but they were new to social justice. So I think they were experimenting a lot as to what works and doesn't work. And that went well with some kids and maybe not so well with some kids. So, but I just thought I would mention that if there are folks who are struggling or who have kids who are on the fence.
Thanks. Any other parents want to share maybe about either a concentration or a pathway that their children have pursued, or any other things that maybe kind of help their student find balance around, not just the core academics? Scott, you made a mention of drama. I leave my pronunciation skills up to you.
Charu, hi, it's Bryn. So my son, I have a current 10th grader. I have two boys, so next year I'll have an incoming freshman boy and then my junior. So my boys also are not really that in love with the academics of school. And so my current 10th grader is in social justice, and he chose it specifically for the project-based learning so that he wouldn't have to have tests in 2 of his classes. And just he really is social and wanted to collaborate more. So it's unfortunate that this year is COVID. But the other thing I wanted to say was that he really discovered a love for art in the past couple of years. He took art last year as a freshman and then again this year. And so, yeah, for a kid who didn't know he loved art at a younger age, he really enjoyed it at Paly. And it also breaks up the academics with something that's just hands-on and fun. So, yeah. I like the balance for him.
Great, thank you so much, Bryn. Any other comments around art? And folks, there are many of us on this call. There are 100 participants. I just love our community participation in these calls. But please share your questions in the chat group, and then I can steer in that direction, or any particular topic areas you guys are interested in. But let's dive into art a little bit. My daughter did photography, which was great, and she really enjoyed that, and that led to kind of developing some skills that she's taken on later in life. And she is by nature a crafting and art-oriented person, but has not necessarily pursued anything else at Paly. But we did go in as a family and did a workshop of the glass blowing workshop. And I was just amazed. That is such a unique and brilliant program that we have at Paly. So I don't know if anybody else can make some comments about the visual arts program, the fine arts programs that we have at Paly, or have any experience around that. Anybody want to share?
Charo, I can make one point if that helps.
Yep.
Just the sort of for I have a 11th grader. For families that are later in school, this is too late. But I think one thing to think about is that some of the pathways that are offered our kids take 4 years, and art is an example of that. So if you have a kid who is very serious and wants to make art, for example, create a portfolio and apply to tertiary education, with art as their kind of their thing, then they will not be able to get to the most advanced art class at Paly unless they start in year 1, or if they somehow are allowed to jump. I haven't had experience of asking whether you can jump, so I'm not sure if that is encouraged or not. But the pathway itself is 4 years, so you kind of have to do art in first year, and then you can do advanced drawing, then advanced drawing, then AP art. And that can, if your child discovers art in sophomore year and says, "Oh my God, this is it," then they're kind of stuck. They're not going to be able to get to the highest level of art in the school. And then potentially there's an issue with it looking like you didn't take the most serious art. I mean, I think one thing that tempers that is that when it comes down to it, if you're applying for art school, what it comes down to is your portfolio, and that. So it's probably, having taken a particular sequence of classes is less essential, but it is. I think it's unfortunate that there's a 4-year rather than a 3-year program, just because for kids who are kind of don't have it all sorted out in 8th grade and know what they want, that they are serious about art, then they can they don't get the chance to take everything that's on offer. So it's just something to be aware of.
I did notice in I have an incoming freshman, so I've been listening in on on that intro talk and everything. And seems to be a new entry point for the visual arts. There's a first year course, there's the art spectrum class, but then there's also something called like a digital version of it. So I suspect you're still accurate, Simon, that to get to the highest levels, you kind of need to take art as your elective year one. But at least there seem to be now 2 options rather than just the one art spectrum class.
Cool.
Moving on, I am seeing a lot of questions in the chat about AAR. And I know we have people online right now. Kamal, can I cold call you and ask you, maybe you can share your experiences and knowledge of that
Sure.
program?
Yeah, that's fine. You can hear me, right?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So I think AAR is a great program. I have a 2018 graduate of Paly who did take AAR senior year. I know that a number of kids take it through social justice program. He was not social justice. He was hardcore STEM, but he actually really enjoyed it for a couple reasons. One, it really is up to the student to decide their project. They have a lot of leeway. It's pretty open-ended. So if your student has a particular passion, they can definitely dive into that through AAR. The flip side, the thing I will say is a lot of onus is on the student to make it a good project. The mentor is there to guide the student, but the mentor does not do all the structure and scaffolding around the project. And the AAR teachers really help with sort of the fundamentals of how do you structure a research project or how do you structure a survey. But the drive has to come from the student to make it worthwhile. So just for all parents, sort of keep that in mind, that the project and the experience in AAR will only be as good as the effort your student wants to put into it, really. That's kind of what I'd say, but I know there are a lot of questions on the Facebook page, and you can absolutely do all different kinds of projects. I know a student that did a short story, like a booklet of short stories, because her passion was writing. And final plug is we do need mentors, and there's a lot of people in the community. It doesn't take a lot of time. And the more of us with different backgrounds that offer to help gives students a lot more chance to try diverse projects.
Thanks, Kamal. I will echo what Kamal said. My daughter, my junior, is doing an AAR project right now, or in the AAR class. There are a couple of teachers that teach AAR right now, and at least this past year, it was pretty much an 8th period class. So it's on like Tuesday and Thursday afternoons, just a little bit later after that last period. And it's a really nice kind of combination of blended learning as well. So there's things that it's very much an opportunity for students to really dive deep into an area that interests them, that spikes their interest. I think it's really good preparation for any type of college program that is very research oriented. And they're definitely taking, using a lot of sort of real world skills and getting a lot of real world skills in terms of designing surveys and interpreting information and data, and ultimately putting together presentations and all the writing involved as well. So there's all of those, at least that's the experience that we're having. Any specific questions about AAR? It stands for Advanced Authentic Research, I think. Yeah. And it was a
Saru,
new...
I just pinged in the chat. Do students have to find their own mentor? And what if they can't find one, or do they find it for them?
So my daughter this year does not have a mentor, and there's no requirement, at least this past year. Maybe it was because it was an unusual year. Definitely, as Kamal mentioned, we would really love for the community to step up and, be a part of this program and mentor students through this program if they're able to. So I think there's a process to kind of match people up. The teachers are phenomenal at kind of matching those students up with when they need a mentor and when they want a mentor. My student, for instance, just she's focusing on something that's closely related to education, and her teacher is Miss McDaniels anyways, so she didn't feel the need to have an outside mentor. It was very optional for her, and she just didn't go down that path. So
just let me jump in really quick. The students do not have to find their own mentor. They fill out a survey about areas they're interested in before the class starts, and then they're matched to a mentor based on the survey they fill out. And mentors also fill out a survey like what are their areas of expertise, that type of thing. And so then they're matched. However, if your student knows someone in an area that they're really interested in, they can bring their own mentor. Cannot be a parent though, just so everybody knows. You cannot mentor your own child. And I think that's kind of the main rule.
mhm.
Can I just, sorry, Charu, this is Divya. Can I mention one more thing about AAR? My daughter took it in junior year. And just so people know that that's a class, that's something you can take even as your 8th period if you wanted to. It is a lot of workload then, just keep that in check, but there is an option to take it as an additional class as well.
Yeah. And okay.
May I ask just a quick question? Does anyone know the difference between AAR and AP Seminar and AP Research? Because it seems like that's a totally different track, but the descriptions are really quite similar.
Yeah, I can speak to that. So I would say the main difference is that AP Seminar is a prerequisite for AP Research, and there's no prerequisites for AAR. And then the other thing is that AP Research it's an AP class. So it has, there's sort of more parameters around it that are outside of the control of the Paly teacher because it is an AP class. So there's more flexibility with AAR.
Okay, thank you. That's
Sure.
helpful.
Okay. Any last questions on any of those, AP Research, AP Seminar, AAR? I think that is basically the category of research-oriented classes that we have that are pretty open-ended in terms of topic.
Charu, just to say, there's a really good conversation on the Paly Parent Facebook page where parents have chimed in with their kids' experiences doing either seminar, the AP version or the AAR version. Really helpful. I've thrown in some sort of opinionated comments about the College Board, but I think if you ignore what I said, but look at what people who've actually had experience with the class say, I think there are some very useful pointers as to how they differ. And I have to say, I'm very impressed with what people say about both of them. I think they both of them sound great options for kids, and I think it just depends on what your kid is looking for. So it's worth looking at that if as a further resource.
One other thing that I would add is that I believe AAR can be taken more than 1 year, which I don't think is true for AP Research, although I don't know that for sure, but my understanding is that AAR could be taken for more than 1 year. So if you had a student that really liked it or just really liked the independent component, that could be kind of a nice thing.
Demise, I think just your question about AAR with an interest in urban planning. I know for a fact, I remember taking note of a project last year around involving floodplains in East Palo Alto. So I think there are definitely topics. I think there's the list of topics that have been covered might be published somewhere. If I find that list, I'll share it with you guys, maybe through email or something, and let you know. But I think the past topics have been across the board, and you'd be surprised at what students are able to come up with as areas of exploration. At least in past years, there has been maybe the last year was the first one before school shut down. So not this immediate past year, but the year before, there was actually a CTE showcase in May where all the different CTE programs as well as AAR had an opportunity to really share and showcase their things. And maybe I'll work with the administration and see if there's some way we can do that in a virtual way this year. There were some questions about living skills. Just a quick update on living skills. Right now, the district has told us that it will only be offered to rising seniors first this summer. And that is because it is capacity constrained in terms of the number of teachers they have that are willing to teach living skills this summer. We are definitely trying to have the district expand the program to rising juniors and of course rising sophomores even. And but that's the latest I know. Judy Argumetto is the principal of the summer school program this year. And I think if you have an interest in seeing living skills or any other school courses offered this summer through summer school, now is the time to let somebody know that that's what's of interest for you. So I think there were some questions about journalism. Is there somebody here that could speak to Usma? You were mentioning that you.
Yeah, I can talk about it. My son did Intro to Journalism second semester. And he actually found the class challenging. It was really, really difficult to, get good grades on a lot of those papers. He is still he writes for one of the newspapers, and he's been in it. He was able to start doing that second semester sophomore year, and now he's a senior. So I will say for my son, he struggles with executive functioning, and there's a lot of like gymnastics and steps in journalism, like reaching out to people, updating your story doc, just a lot of things you have to check off. And so that was a struggle. And I would say, like, finally, as a senior, I think he understands all the steps he has to do. So the positive was you gain a lot of executive functioning skills. It's not just for people who want to, be a journalist. There's so many skills that you can learn. But, I just wanted to say that was kind of a challenge for us.
Any other experiences around the journalism program?
I can chime in, Janine Hayward. I have a son, Zach, who's a junior, and he's on the Viking, which is the sports magazine. And he really enjoys it. And one thing I was thinking about when people were talking about research, I don't think either of my kids would be willing to do that kind of deep dive. But journalism also gives them some freedom to choose subjects or areas they're interested in, do research, and write. It's probably not for anybody, obviously, who's not that into writing, but it's probably the one class he's enjoying most this year, despite the challenges of putting out a publication from home. One thing I will mention, it involves more group work. I don't know if that's true of all the publications, but Viking certainly involves more group work than traditional journalism would, because kids are often grouped together to write a story or design a story, which is a good thing and a bad thing, as all group work. And that once you get to you have to take Intro to Journalism, which I will say it was not a challenging class for him, but that he liked. Again, he had to do it. He had it second semester last year, so most of it was from home. But I would recommend it for kids who like to write, and there are enough publications that if you have a particular interest in sports or art or culture, the Campanile kind of covers everything. So lots of opportunities.
Great.
I also want to add to that if your student can talk to somebody in the different publications, that would be really helpful, because from what I've heard, it sounds like the publications can be very different. Like for my son, there was not a lot of group work. Everything was almost like an independent project. So maybe talk to the teachers of the different publications and try to find out, how they're different. And they differ in size too. So Campy's really big, and there's some, much smaller ones as well.
Right. Any questions out there about journalism? I know that we even have some incoming freshman parents with us today.
I have a question, Charu. I'd like to hear if it's better for kids to get involved in journalism in 10th grade, or is it too late if they start journalism in 11th grade to get into a publication? What's generally the case, 10th or 11th?
I don't know.
I think it's both. They're both fine. I mean, if you can take the intro to journalism first semester as a sophomore, you can. If you get that class, then you can be in a publication second semester, which is nice as you get to be part of that. But it is not too late to start junior year at all.
Okay, thanks.
Some questions. Any other questions on journalism? Okay. So some questions further back in the thread about art history, arts honor, how hard that is, how much time. Does anybody have any experience with that? Anyone? Going once, going twice?
I can talk a little bit about AP art history, which my 10th grader is in right now. He loves the class, loves the teacher. It is a lot of work in terms of memorizing. So there's 250 art pieces that they cover, and they have to memorize information about all 250 art pieces over the course of the year, because that's what's on the AP test. But if your child likes art and art history, it could be really interesting for them.
Cool. Great. Does anybody have experience with Psych, AP Psych? And maybe they can share a little bit about what that program looks like, what those classes look like. No? Okay.
I do have a student in AP Psych currently. I don't feel like I really have a deep sense of what it's like. She seems to enjoy it. I also don't know how much they've changed it this year, since it's obviously strictly Zoom based. So yeah, I don't, she seems to like it.
Okay.
It doesn't seem super overwhelming.
Okay, great.
Sorry.
And there are no prerequisites, right, for Mari? For
There
that?
are no prerequisites for AP Psych, no.
Is a similar question around APES, AP Environmental Science. Any experiences with that? I definitely know a lot of juniors take AP Environmental Science. You see juniors tend to either do physics or AP Environmental Science that year if they're taking a science. And I have heard good things. My daughter did kind of the first semester of that in UC Scout over the summer, but it's a lot of emphasis around climate and, understanding all the different elements to what's happening with respect to climate change, which I think is extremely topical.
Question, can I ask a question, Charu? As a junior, do you choose between physics and environmental science? Or can you take one and not the other? Or do some people take both in one year?
I might get this wrong, but I believe our graduation requirements are only 2 years of science. So typically you've met, or our students have met their graduation requirement by the end of sophomore year.
Okay.
And then it's really a choice for our students in terms of which science they want to pursue. And typically they do bio in freshman year and chemistry in sophomore year. But So I think there's quite a bit of range in terms of how many people take physics or APES or not any science at all, or even
Yeah.
our AP Computer Science Principles counts as a science class for that particular A through G credit, all that kind of thing.
Yeah, like I'm just wondering, does a student take physics as a junior to see if they like it? Like, have they even really been exposed to what is called physics? Or if they have, maybe they don't even know that that was physics. And so is it kind of like an intro class?
Yeah, I don't know if anybody else can talk to it. I know my daughter in physics right now, she's covering, all the aspects of force, and I think they're going to be touching on energy and electricity and all of those things. And the last time she had any exposure to physics was 8th grade. So it's kind of this rotation of science that happens.
Yeah. And how does she like her teacher? Is the class really hard?
No, I mean, she's liking her teachers. She's enjoying the class. I think she plans on doing the next level next year in senior year. But I think that's kind of the individual experience. So everyone is going to have, she couldn't stand biology. She's definitely not somebody who's going to pursue anything around medicine or, the bio track at all. But I think my 8th grader will be completely different and, pursue that. So I think it's just a very personal choice.
Yeah. Thank you.
So I was just going to add that when my daughter was a rising 10th grader, the guidance department sent out a memo basically saying that they recommended, for purposes of college applications, that the students do take physics at some point, although it's not required. So my daughter actually took the human anatomy class junior year and then is taking just the regular physics this year, which I do feel like it's very much a survey class. And my understanding is that honors physics is a lot more, it's much higher level math, calculus based. And whereas the one that she's taking seems fairly manageable. So I just think that's something to keep in mind depending on your particular child's needs, that apparently they are saying they're recommending that they take the 3 foundational sciences at some point.
Okay. How was human anatomy?
She really, really loved it. And the teacher is excellent. And they have human anatomy, there's an honors option and a regular option.
And what one did she do?
She did the honors option. Yeah.
Okay.
And she really liked it. And it was excellent.
Great. Thank you so much.
Since we're on the topic of anatomy, any feedback around bio and bio-H for incoming freshmen?
So, Chara, my daughter she'll be a senior next year. So when she did biology H, she had liked biology in 7th grade. She did biology H, and now she wants nothing to do with biology. So, so I would just be very careful because you don't get the GPA bump. And the only thing that bio H gets you to do is you could take AP biology later on. So unless your child really loves it, I wouldn't force them to do it. I wish we had forced her or encouraged her, might be a better term, to do Chem H because she did so well in chemistry, but she didn't. And now she can't take AP chemistry, and she didn't take physics honors either. So she can't take AP physics. So, so there's those little things to think about, but I think when I looked at bio-H, I thought it looked fabulous. I thought it just looked so interesting, but apparently my daughter is not me, so.
Yeah, Sharon, my daughter did bio-H too, and, subsequently doesn't want anything to do with biology. But I do remember in the first few weeks of bio-H, I thought it was fascinating because they start the class out with this whole, CSI like forensic science thing, which actually becomes the platform for that whole first semester, I think. Really, what could have happened here? And I thought it was kind of an engaging way to present biology, but anyways.
Charu,
Yeah.
just a point on that. So that curriculum you're talking about, the disease model curriculum for biology, is not consistent, or at least wasn't consistent 2 years ago across the schools. So the one place that you were guaranteed that particular version of biology was in TEAM, and TEAM kind of pioneered it. And if you chose TEAM, you got that version of biology. Other teachers have adopted that same new biology curriculum, which is based around, like I say, around a disease model. I think it's really cool. And the honors version of that is a project that you carry on through the year where you, I think, investigate a particular disease. You can take, say, asthma. And so it's not, and I think there are elements where you can answer extra questions on quizzes too. But for kids who were not in TEAM, you couldn't ask for that your kid would do a particular curriculum. You just got what you got. You got assigned a class and a teacher, and then some teachers were doing the new curriculum and some were doing the old. And I don't know if now everyone's transitioned to the new curriculum, or if there's still a disparity between the two options and kids are just kind of, they get what they get. But that's worth, if people care, it's worth asking about what the situation is. And that might be a reason to try TEAM, where you're going to get this particular curriculum. And TEAM usually has an information night and they can tell you what they're doing. My news is 2 years old, so it might all have changed, but that's just worth thinking about.
Great, thanks, Simon. Let's move on to chemistry, since we've done physics and bio. Let's do chemistry, and then next we'll talk a little bit about math and some of the math lanes. So anybody want to share their experiences around chem? I'm thinking of all my junior parents here.
My daughter loved chemistry. She took it sophomore year and she had Ms. Walsh, and she came home thrilled with chemistry, which shocked me completely, but she liked more of the math that wasn't in biology, I think. So she, anyway.
Thanks. Any perspectives on chem versus chem H? I know we all have our own individual experiences. My junior found chem H extremely hard. It was, and there was some variation between the teachers and what their expectations were. So it was, it's definitely a challenging sophomore year class.
Yeah, Thierry, this is Casper. I recognize that my son loves chemistry, takes chemistry 8, but he does find it a challenging class. Yeah. And I have a chemistry background. I tried to help him a little bit this week, and I found it extremely challenging too. But that may be because I'm not really into it anymore. But it's fun though. Yeah. He likes it a lot. Yeah.
Okay. Let's move on to math. And there were some questions about IAC. I don't even know what that stands for, but I know it's the non-honors class in junior after you complete algebra. And I think it's introductory analysis and calculus or something like that. And then there's the analysis honors. So any comments, any thoughts about one versus the other, or any of the, yeah, those are the questions. Melanie, are you still on? Okay, Melanie shared a comment.
Hey, Charu, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hey, yeah, no, I was just sort of explaining, I guess, the format for IAC, and that's this year. I don't know if it's different or will be different next year, but yeah, it's basically, I would say I mean, there actually are three classes. So there's like a pre-calculus, there's the IAC, which is advanced, I guess, and then there's the analysis honors. And I think whoever said that analysis honors is the one people kind of drop out of junior year, or they decide not, or to drop down a lane. I think that's pretty true. I think Paly has some data on that, but yeah, but I mean, the IAC is fine. It's just weekly quizzes though. So it is, pretty intense. It's a pretty fast paced class, but I don't know how it compares to Analysis H. So maybe somebody wants to talk about that.
I can speak to Analysis H from last year. My daughter took Analysis H last year, and on day one of the class, her teacher said, just so you know, look around the room, 30% of you will not be here by semester. And that ended up being true. They just dropped like flies after the first test, and they dropped down to the IAC class. And her friends that did drop down were much happier in IAC. So, I mean, my daughter did make it through to the end of Analysis H, but it definitely is a difficult class, and it's known to be sort of a weeder class for those that would then go on to the Calc BC. So I have heard that things have changed a little bit this year, but I can't speak to that since I don't have a kid in that class this year.
I mean, I can speak to that a little bit. My junior is in Analysis H, and that drop-off rate did not exist this past year. I don't know exactly why, but I think it's kind of a pandemic condition, because I know we didn't cover as much curriculum in Algebra 2 Trig Honors last year, and that the first few weeks of this year we're actually covering that curriculum. So maybe it was just easing into it in a different way this year, but I'm not really sure what that implies for future years or even this next coming year. Okay, same thread of math, GOA versus GOH for an incoming 9th grader. Any thoughts, comments, any experience? I can share that my junior, when she was in freshman year, GOH was a really, really hard class. It really is a lot of advanced abstract thinking, and it took a good amount of energy to and a good amount of effort to really absorb it. And she is a strong math student. So it was a tough class. It was singularly her toughest class. And it took a good amount of support from us for her to get through it and to fundamentally and ultimately do well. But it was, yeah, my husband and I have engineering degrees, and some of those problems were baffling to us.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I have a freshman that's in the class right now. My senior also took that class. She didn't struggle with it, but she's strong in math, really strong. She actually talked her little brother into taking it, saying, oh, it's easy. Now in hindsight, I wish I would have had him just take regular geo, especially given that we're doing distance learning this year. I really kicked myself on that. I think he would have thrived a lot more if he had just been in regular geo. He started out strong, but yeah, he hit a wall pretty quickly, and it's his hardest class for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think I don't know, and I don't have a good feel for how we're going to move from this year into next year, and kind of where some things have maybe been different in this pandemic year, and how that's going to how we're going to launch next year. But yeah. Any other thoughts on math? Okay. And we have 10 more minutes or so before we close.
Charu, this is Jinji. I'm sorry. Can I ask a follow-on question about Geo? Yeah. So similarly, like you said, so my son actually is a strong math learner, and he's taking GH right now. But he consistently getting B's and C's, and it's really difficult. So my question is for the senior parents, like you had the older kids, what's the next selection recommendation? I'm thinking to come down a tier, but we're not sure.
So I'll tell you my experience. So GOH was a really big struggle, but Algebra 2 Trig Honors was very different for my daughter. She really thrived in that class. It was completely different. Like geometry generally is just this own little thing, right? And it doesn't necessarily imply how well or how much you might enjoy algebra. So maybe she got lucky, but she had a great teacher in Algebra 2 Trig Honors, and they had this concept of bell ringers, where basically every class would be kind of a skills check. So there was a continuity of learning, which I personally feel is really important in any kind of math. Math is like a language, and the more frequent and consistent you are in terms of, taking bites every day into it, I think that really helps your fluency ultimately. So that model was prevalent in her A2 Trig H class, which was a very different experience for her.
Oh, thank you so much.
Let's see, I just want to make sure that we've hit kind of the broad areas. Any other questions? People just feel free to unmic yourselves and unmute yourselves.
I have a question for the summer school. Where to apply? I just look at the website. They only give a schedule for the high school general program session. However, there's no link. At least I did not find the application web page.
Yeah, Lisa, I do not believe that they have opened registration yet for summer school. I don't think they even have determined exactly what courses they're going to be offering. I think that's still all in development. So I'm sure when the registration opens, there will be some broader communications. I think there was an earlier question about econ and Spanish. I don't think we know what's being offered yet.
By the way, for the registration, what's the deadline to submit the course selection form?
That's a really good question. Does anybody know? I think the deadline is, I don't want to say because I don't know.
I thought I heard February 8th. Or sorry, 28th.
Okay. I will send a follow-up message to our community when I find out what that deadline is. And I'm sure Principal Klein is going to make that clear in some of his communications as well.
Okay, thank you.
There's a question about business law. And actually, I had a question. I have a rising senior. I'm kind of curious about some of the English options, the electives, if anybody wants to share what senior English electives look like. And also anybody with any experience in business law.
Hey, Charu?
Yes.
I just wanted to tell you, I actually was asking about the English electives recently. My daughter's teacher's super helpful. And so he'll, usually answer questions from parents with a lot of detail. And what he said was that they're actually putting together short little 2-minute videos on each English class for seniors. And they're going to present them to the juniors, I don't know, maybe next week.
Oh, great.
He said it was almost done and ready to go. So, so that should be helpful.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect. So TBD, stay tuned. Business law, anyone? And then there's a question about leadership. I didn't even know we had that question or that course. So English leadership for seniors, or the course leadership. There is there's a leadership course that's associated with ASB. So if you become an elected officer, if you're the site council representative, I believe you take this ASB course. Sorry, go ahead. Okay. Okay, we're almost done. Any last questions?
Hello.
Hey,
Yeah, go ahead, Elena.
I can talk about the business law. My daughter took that the semester course last semester. She said it's really easy, and then the teacher is nice, but she didn't learn much. I mean, the curriculum is not that complete, yeah, for just a semester. But that class is very easy.
Okay. And actually, I see I've missed a few questions about languages and Spanish. AP Spanish 4. Does anybody have any experience with that class? Particularly if someone took it at an earlier grade level, sophomore year? Okay.
my son is taking AP Spanish 4, and it's quite a bit of work, and he really enjoys it. There's a lot of speaking, and it's all in preparation for the AP test. So it's just distinctly just for the AP test.
Okay.
I have a question about AP tests. So is there a point to even taking an AP test if you don't necessarily care about not having to take that class again in college? Like, does that question even make sense?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I've asked the same question of people as well. It's kind of interesting to see what's changing in the college admissions landscape. So if you don't care about the credit, that's one aspect of that decision. The other aspect is now college admissions officers are really looking across the board at every little bit of information they can. Grades seem to be very confusing for this pandemic time. And so they lack kind of the historical school-based context, whereas kind of the AP exams, at least it's kind of a standard assessment across the board. And yeah, that's what I've heard.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, any other questions?
Yes, I had a question. I'm sorry, I forgot the name of the summer school vice principal that we should be emailing or contacting about our course preferences.
Yeah, so Judy Argumedo and is the summer school principal. And I'll just type her name into the chat.
Thank you.
And Okay, great. Thank you everybody for joining us this morning. We're probably going to be changing the timing of these weekly calls just simply because Principal Klein has a conflict for the next few weeks, but stay tuned. I'll definitely let you all know when our next session will be. Okay.
Thank you, Charo.
Thank you.
Thank you all for participating today, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charu. Thank you.
Thank you.